Hello, Don in London. Good morning. It's August 10th. My videos are about living in recovery, and recovery for me is recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. Wanting to be in the right place with the right people, doing the right things, having the right things, a drink in hand. Trying to make life work and hoping that life would work as best it could. Not would work, but life could work. August 10th, day 5 of riots in the UK, and that's a difficult time for anyone in recovery because we pick up on the feelings of all those people around us. We become more sensitive to what is going on in the world, and the reason why we're more sensitive to what is going on in the world, we don't live in denial and we don't get belligerent about what is going on if we can possibly avoid it. We cannot afford to be angry or resentful at anybody, and we need to keep our side of the street clean. So that's what sobriety has done for me. It's made me able, to see life on life's terms, the reality of situations, rather than the way I wish them to be or would make them be if I were in power. Power is a very difficult concept because with it comes every responsibility in terms of actions and what happens, and that is true even when we're drinking. So what helped me get sober? Well, I took it to the very last moment of being alive, I guess, and not wanting to be here anymore because life was just so awful. I couldn't stop drinking alcohol. I couldn't stop thinking, I just don't want to be here anymore. And sometimes when people are pushed to the very edge of their ability to understand their situation, they go into anger and the insanity of trying to change things or fight back or rebel or put down and make life difficult for other people. And that's very much what's happened over the last few days. This is just a symptom of how people feel about their lives. If people felt okay, that life was worth living, that the way society worked for them, then they would have no resort to violence and disorder and what they think is their right to break the law and to confound people and to make life difficult. You know, how much pain does a person have to be in to turn off from society completely and break down and fight back, or just break down and fight, or break down and do things which just have violent consequences for other people? So a lot of reflection in me today. You know, recovery is about facing life on life's terms and learning how to live life as best one can, based on reality, and not shirking from our responsibilities as citizens. That is, conform to law and order, don't drink or take drugs, and see what happens. And the answer is, even in the hardest of times, life is manageable. Life is possible. We don't have to keep doing the same old thing, trying to make something different happen. So we're in a very tight place right now in the UK. We seem to have got ourselves in a dangerous situation where law and order is breaking down. And why? Well, I won't go into the why just yet, because I don't know that I know the answers, and I'm not wishing to point fingers at anyone, but we have to deal with what is. You know, this is what it is. It is what it is right now. So what helps me like this when life is tough and difficult, and alarms going off, and sirens going off, and shops shutting down in the afternoon because they're frightened of what might happen next? I need to keep safe and look at my part in it. What can I do to be helpful? Mainly keep out of the way of what's going on, because I haven't got a voice at the moment about what is going on. We have enough voices in politics and the papers and on the media, and I don't know that I can make a contribution beyond what keeps me sober in times like this. Well, obviously, for me, I'm in fellowship, community, family, society. Not necessarily in that order, but all of those things. I'm in the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which is about living life as best we can on life's terms, as life is today, doing the best we can, being open, honest and willing to change as circumstances change, and generally keep out of trouble and live as best we can. It doesn't stop us voting, it doesn't stop us having opinions, and it doesn't stop us being angry and upset when people are being hurt. And I know hurt people hurt other people. Angry people make other people angry. Belligerent people make other people belligerent. Point scoring doesn't work. So, AA, the fellowship, keeps me sober so that I can be part of family, community, society, do what I can with what I've got, not complain about my situation particularly, because it's as good as it can get today. But I feel for people who are caught in the middle of a dreadful set of circumstances, and most of us are feeling the pinch in terms of money and how society is today, where there is no safe place and no safety net for most people right now. It's very, very harsh. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. What's helping me? Keeping in touch with family, keeping in touch with fellowship, being aware of what is going on around me, not going to dangerous places, not associating with people who want to hurt other people. That's as far as I can go now, right now. And if I could sweep the streets, I would. If that would help, if that would really, really help, I would do it. So, this video all about recovery, being sober even in the most difficult of times. Fellowship helps me. I don't speak for AA, never can, never will, and AA is not affiliated to any political view or any point of view I might have either. AA is there to keep me sober, a safe place to find out how to be sober when life is good and when life doesn't seem to be working too well. And I've had a lot of that over the last decade or two. So what is AA? Well, the point of this video is to share about how AA helps me at any time. I share the AA preamble here, which explains why AA is not affiliated to anything, but we all are, because we all feel it when things are right or wrong. And some of the readings, which are very, very helpful to me on a daily basis. And there's a 12-step program, 12 steps to keep my side of the street clean, if you like. Not to ignore what's going on the other side of the street, but to be helpful if I can. Not let people down, not let people suffer unduly. Hold out a helping hand as best I can. So this is what AA does for me. This is the AA preamble shared at every meeting that I attend in London, and there are 700 to choose from, safe havens from the awfulness of what goes on in our lives sometimes, but also to share the joy of what goes on in our lives too. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So in there it says the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no rules, laws or regulations in AA to fasten a person down, and there is no affiliation by the fellowship, but everybody in the fellowship has affiliations. So we go there for sobriety, how to keep sober in the worst and most awful of circumstances. That is, when we're really under pressure and we don't know what to do next, most often. And the primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So hence I do these videos. And we do our best. So AA Daily Reflections is a fellowship book and it has a one-page a day to try and help us with our 12-step program of recovery, 12 steps to keep well, 12 steps to live life on life's terms, open, honest and willing to change our attitudes and behaviour to fit what is going on, and to deal with our feelings and be in the moment of now. That's a tall order in itself. So we learn how over a period of time, and a lot of people are learning what happens when we don't know how to live life on life's terms, from politicians to the person wearing a mask in the street and rioting and stealing and breaking the law. We're not very good at learning how to do these things because these are exceptional times. So when people start pointing the finger and getting angry, this is when it starts to go really wrong, and people take sides, and then it all goes to pot, riotous and horrible. Anyway, the AA Daily Reflection for today, August 10th. Redoubling our efforts. To a degree, he has already done this when taking moral inventory, but now the time has come when he ought to redouble his efforts to see how many people he had hurt, and in what ways. So it's about hurting people who have hurt people, create other people who hurt people. As I continue to grow in sobriety, I become more aware of myself as a person of worth. In the process, I am better able to see others as persons, and with this comes the realization that these were people whom I had hurt in my drinking days. I didn't just lie. I lied about Tom. I didn't just cheat. I cheated Joe. What were seemingly impersonal acts were really personal affronts, because it was people of worth, whom I had harmed. I need to do something about the people I've hurt, so that I may enjoy peaceful sobriety. Now, when it comes to hurting people, and it doesn't seem like a personal affront, when a politician says, well, there's no money because there's no money and it was their fault, they were in last time and they made it so. When there is no money and it cuts services, it is a personal affront to those people who have got nothing, then find they have even more of nothing, and even less hope and less opportunity. So it's not about blame, it's about reality. So we have to be careful when we say to ourselves, look at who we have harmed. On a personal level, there are many things that I did in the past. The sin of not being there, not being present, not understanding life. Now that's ignorance, followed by awareness, followed by possibly denial, or followed by I see my part in it and I need to make a list of people I've harmed and be willing to make amends to them. But what happens around us in society, all our role models are saying it wasn't my fault. Organisations, businesses, if you can get through and complain, they say, well, tough shit. It's not our fault, you didn't follow X, Y and Z. Your credit card, well, it's useless to you as a form of insurance because we don't take that literally. Get on your bike and go to court. So everything is put in the way of understanding. No wonder people get angry and resentful and don't know who to turn to and don't know what to do. And then they find a method as examples from other parts of the world where people stand up, say this is not right. And don't forget in Egypt, where the uprising started, some people looted the museums. Not everyone, but hurt people, and it goes that way. The more we hurt people, the more hurt people start hurting other people, and it compounds and compounds. And what I've learned in fellowship is don't hurt anyone, don't self-harm. Try not to get argumentative, because we can't afford justifiable anger, because it leads to resentment and then a sort of anger which goes red hot, which leads me on to my point from last night. And I was watching Newsnight and an exchange between two politicians, one Labour, one Conservative. The Conservative Michael Gove, a very reasonable chappie, and Harriet Harman, who is a very reasonable politician as well. We would think, wouldn't we? Anyway, the high ground of arrogance. This is one of my thoughts for today. something I cannot afford. I can't afford to be arrogant, but I can see what's going on in front of me. Shouting down and putting down, a politician's thin veneer wears off as a torment of anger spews in every sentence. I was never like that, and I put a question mark there. In our own heads we will have felt exactly that way, where we've had an angry exchange over a complaint or something which has happened to us which we feel is not our fault. Sober and level-headed, we are less prone to outbursts and even feeling that way, and that's true. When we leave people to rot, rotten things happen. And that's what we've done in our society all too often, because we really haven't concentrated on what is important. We may say we have, but it's community and society, politics and economics. All these partitions have fallen down, and it's all mixed up now because of the way the world runs. You can't do one thing without another thing happening. And this is the other point I wanted to make this morning. What I hear quite often: it's all your fault. Blame, blame and more blame. They did it. If you hadn't, then I wouldn't have had to. Politicians last night on the riots. Belligerent denial in the grip of righteousness. Establish law and order, and they too feel anger and resentment. The Conservative cries out, then gets angry, talks down, feels he gets away with it, accusing another as mealy-mouthed. A violent verbal assault, an example of not getting his own way, and a denial of reality. Now, anybody with a bit of common sense knows that if you leave people to rot, rotten things happen. And when a government says it's not our fault, it's their fault, so therefore we're going to cut all your services, we're going to empower the councils to make the cuts that they need to make, but we're not responsible for those cuts or those, reallocations of money. It's not our fault, it was their fault. And on it goes. Nobody's saying that there isn't less money, but what are you doing with it? And what are you doing in the markets at the moment? And what are you doing with the banks? And what are you doing about all those highly paid people who churn over shares and take commissions for doing just that? Or managing debt? What do you do there? You slap more and more charges on those who can ill afford them. So what was it said last night? £7 of debt per head of the world population. But that debt is not spread across all people equally. Often the debt is spread across those who pay taxes, certainly in the West, and those who don't pay taxes or evade them or try and get round them or pay their tax in other countries because it's cheaper, or those who keep on taking high bonuses when they're failing because they say it's the politician's fault. No, it's not. How dare you take a bonus when you're not actually being successful? Managing the market. You don't manage the market at all. You place bets and hope you win. But then when you don't win, you still expect a bonus, don't you? That's how it is, because we're bankers and we know better. Well, do they? Obviously they don't know. And shares up, down, left, right. Something's wrong, but still people take out their big bonus. And that does rankle with me. So anyway, that's politics for me. And economics for me. Do I know what's going on? Of course I do. And so do people with common sense. But there will be belligerent denial that we need to be paid this much or we'll clear off to the Far East. Well, it's not so good there either, and there are only a certain amount of jobs. So if you want to vacate your jobs in the UK, why don't you bugger off? Now I feel better, but I might have upset some people by saying that. And don't forget, all those with big share portfolios, the so-called rich, are not so rich anymore, unless of course you saw how the market was going to turn. And of course many people did see that, and of course they made some money on it. So they're making money out of misery. Other years, maybe this is better to go for, or maybe not. So this is between 2008 and 2010. At my worst, I was doing my best. At their worst, they are doing their best! Exclamation mark. I need to find forgiveness for my worst efforts in living, especially when in the iron grip of an ism or addiction. I'd lost my choices in living. And what choices have these people got going out rioting? I mean, if you've got the time to riot, there must be something wrong. And there are no jobs, so what's going on? I need to forgive everyone and everything, accept the consequences of actions even when exclusion may happen today. Now I've come to terms with that. I can be excluded from vast areas of ordinary life because of my past, which is a person in recovery. These days less stigma, which is why I talk about it. If I was completely stigmatised, I'd be wearing a hood, covering myself up and saying I'm an anonymous recovering addict. Well, these days, what's the point? I'd rather be seen for who I am. And I'm flawed. I'm not perfect, and I don't know the answers to what is going on today. But I do know, at my worst, I was doing my best. At their worst, they are doing their best, because that's all they know to do. If they knew better, they would be doing better, wouldn't they? Amends made one day at a time. Our daily amend is recovery. This is for the recovering alcoholic, or addict, or a person with an ism. Our gift to self and everyone we meet today, because we're not going to look to find fault in you. We're more interested in keeping our side of the street clean and being reasonable and equitable with people. We don't want to talk down to people, we want to be level with them. Recovery is freedom to be open, honest and willing to change. Open, honest and willing. Integrity, humility to keep on learning life. But so often people get closed down, go behind the barriers again and say, bugger off, leave me alone, I want to be in isolation, I don't want to be a part of what is going on. We will make mistakes and sometimes pay a high price as we admit, learn and gain wisdom. Our shared experiences enrich us and everyone today. And I do feel enriched by the experiences of life on life's terms, and also listening to my fellows in the fellowship of AA, who share about their fear, their frustration, their anger, their resentment, but also the positive side of all of this, which is the humility to keep on learning what's my part in it, what can I do to improve the situation rather than hinder it. So the politics of Yahoo, it's all your fault, don't really hold very well in fellowship, because if you're pointing one finger at one person, three fingers are pointing back like that at us. Can't do it here. Yeah, like that. Three fingers point back at me. What's my part in it? And politicians are very prone to saying, hey, you Labour people, you cause £300 billion worth to be spent on the banks. But what is our deficit this year? All those big questions are avoided or denied because they want to keep it in law and order. Both sides want law and order restored because otherwise they don't have legitimacy. But the big question is, if you leave people to rot, what happens? Rotten things happen. Doesn't mean they're rotten people. It means they have no hope. So fellowship and all of that for me is about hope in learning answers about how to live my life and sharing them with others who need to learn how to live their lives in recovery from the most awful situations of life and death, and hoping that life will be worth living again. Always having hope that life will be worth living. You have to have a reason to keep on going and to be a part of, to be included. And if you feel excluded and forgotten and written off, the writing's on the wall. So enough of my riotous politicking and recovery for today. Absolutely enough of my politicking and recovery today, on the video anyway. What keeps me safe in any moment is to remember what I can and cannot do. I can change my attitude and behaviour. I cannot change other people's attitudes and behaviour. We need to learn to work together, live together, included. Very simple concepts, but most complicated set of circumstances will undermine them completely day by day if one keeps on waving a baton and another has a petrol bomb in their hands. We've seen it everywhere. So it's not healthy right now. But the Serenity Prayer offers me the opportunity to see what I can and cannot do, hopefully in more balanced circumstances. But extremes happen every single day when our anger kicks off and the insanity of righteousness comes back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, always for me, and just for today.